Hey guys, Kalendros here. So, wanted to do a very quick run through of my gear. And, you know, obviously I can't show the amp, but I'll talk a little bit about the amp and stuff. So, um, I'll start with the guitars first. And for those wondering, the music in the background is Scale the Summit. This is their album, The Migration. Um, really, the absolute pinnacle of instrumental guitar music, I think, because it's not, and not that I have anything against shredding, it's not just shredding, it's like their stuff is very atmospheric, so highly recommended. There'll probably be a breakdown of one of those songs next week, so. Anyways, and actually probably something off of this album. So, I'll start at the top because this is my main guitar. So this is the, if I can pull it out a little bit further so you guys can see the body. This is a Jackson Death Angel. This is definitely a custom shop guitar. So the interesting story with this guy is it was a this was made in, let's see if I have a date on here. I had looked it up one time, but it was made in Ontario, California, not Ontario, Canada, Ontario, California. But this is when, this was right around the same time that Jackson had done the transition over to Fender. So at this point, I believe Fender had already bought the brand, but there wasn't, I don't think, a true changeover for at least another year and change. So, and you can tell because this is reflected in the way they handle their custom shop guitars and the pricing, because Jackson, their custom shop stuff was very reasonably priced for a custom shop guitar at around this time or prior to 2000. I don't know exactly the date on this one, but it was, I mean, really, it was this guitar. When you look at the price now, a custom shop guitar from Jackson usually will run you somewhere around in the neighborhood of around $5,000 for just like a basic model, and you know, even with dealer deals and stuff like that, you're probably lucky if you get out under $4,000, and that's just for a simple guitar. This one was anything but simple. So this is a, let's see if I can kind of show you a little bit. So this has a 3/4 inch maple top, but it's as you can see here from this angle, it's actually a carved top. So this is an arch top Death Angel. There's very few of them that were ever made. This is, I think, one of maybe only about 6 that were made. They did a run of 5 black flame top Death Angels as like a special run. They were Grim Reaper inlays, silver Grim Reaper inlays, and in like an ebony fretboard, but they were neck through guitars. So this one is a bolt on, but if you can tell from looking at it from, maybe better from this angle here, it's what's called a contoured heel. So the heel is cut. There's a little bit chopped off of it, and the plate is slightly angled, so you have better fret access on the lower frets. So it makes things a little bit easier when you're soloing way down there at around the 20th through the 24th fret. It makes it a little bit easier. So that's another unique feature about this one. The body is solid koa. The neck is also solid koa. Um, it's actually it's I shouldn't say solid koa because it's two piece. You can actually see the piece line at the top of the neck here. Um, so the fretboard is another really interesting feature because the fretboard is slab zero coat. I don't know if that's the correct pronunciation, but zero coat is a close relative to ebony, but is a much softer wood. I always liked the look of ebony, but I didn't like the way it felt because it feels very hard to me. So I like rosewood, but I wanted something darker. And then when I found zero coat, what was really cool about it is it's a wood with a ton of figuring. It's got like it's got like this streaking all throughout. You can't really see it. You need a fairly high resolution. You need like a really high resolution camera to pick it up. But it's it's really noticeable if you're looking at it, especially in like direct light. It's really noticeable. Um, what else? The inlays. Yeah. The inlays are abalone shell zigzag shark fins. I first saw this on an old King Kelly that was made for a JCF forum member a long time ago. His name was Brad, I think, and he had a whole bunch of. He has a ton of custom shop Jacksons, and one of them was this King Kelly with these awesome cuts in the bottom and on either side of it, and it had these broken glass mirror zigzag inlays that was really cool. They were like inlaid pieces of broken glass into the neck. It was really cool. So I like that idea, but I mean, obviously, doing mirror would be super expensive. So just went with the traditional. I could have done mother of pearl, which would have been a little bit cheaper, or this, which is polished shell. So, this looks really nice, especially when you look at it in a light. It looks really cool. Couple of other things in terms of the setup on the bottom here. It's again a non-traditional setup. It's a dual humbucker. Everything is all the like all the knobs and all that stuff is all gold. And the bridge is a Tone Pros locking string through, and then the center pickup is I believe it's a direct mount. I'm not certain if they actually did that or not, but that was what I had asked for, was a direct mount on the center coil. For this is a single coil center, and this one is actually a jazz pickup because I wanted something that was a little more jazzier and cleaner for certain types of solos, and the humbuckers are a full shred, and I can't remember what the other one is. It's all Duncan's. I can't remember what the other pickup is, but I know one of them is a full shred. But I was super happy with the way it came out. But the most crazy thing that I did was I sent them a diagram for wiring because I wanted I was at the time a big Dream Theater fan, and we'll get a little bit more to that when I get to my other guitar. But what's interesting is this one I had asked them to do an interesting switching system. So you have a traditional 5-blade switch here, and then this is wired into a 3-way mini switch here, which the mini switch gives you it's a 3-way neutral position. You have outer coils and then inner coils. So what they call phase and dual sound. So when you look at this configuration, each one of the 5 blade positions interacts with the switch. So like you can be here, which is which is just the rear pickup, and it's a split. So front, back. So it's basically, it acts as a coil tap when in this position. In the middle, then it's dual sound or phase. So it was wired that way to give me a ton of different configuration options for sound and everything, and they really pulled it off. It sounds fantastic. There's one position where it's screwed up. I think that the wiring is a little messed up on it, but I'm not a wiring guy, so I need to have somebody who's pretty darn good at wiring to take it out. Basically to remove the cover here and kind of see what's going on the inside. But I've never really felt that it was necessary because the guitar just is so great and gives you so many different tone options. Gold strap blocks here, and then at the top there's a Jackson Shop custom shop truss rod cover, and then you have the Jackson Charvel custom shop made in USA logo in abalone shell, and then the last piece is Schaller locking tuners. Again, I think especially when you deal with a guitar that does not have a locking tremolo, I think it really is a huge benefit to do locking tuners, because it really, especially if you're playing heavy music, it keeps things in tune a lot better. So yeah, that's pretty much everything with this one. So the binding. This is a natural wood binding, which looks fantastic, right? Well, they kind of fucked it up a little bit because it was supposed to be, the back was supposed to be natural, not trans green. So when I first got it, I was like, oh shit. This, the two things actually. It was not supposed to be solid green. It was supposed to be teal burst. And the back, like I said, was supposed to be natural wood finish. However, when I got the guitar, I instantly fell in love with it, and I never said anything to Jackson about it. I was more than happy with the results. And the other, you got a recessed jack plug too, which I like, the recessed plug. The staining on the top is just incredible, because I don't know exactly what grade of wood this is, but I would imagine it's at least a 4A. Maybe not a 5, but this is like pretty close to what PRS calls their diamond tops, which are 5A quilt or 5A flame tops. But they did a fantastic job with the stain, and I actually kind of like how the green painted back sets off the binding. So at the end of the day, while it would have looked really cool with a natural Koa stained wood back, and I think that would have set off the binding too, because Koa is a much darker wood. At the end of the day, I felt that it wasn't worth, it wasn't worth, going through any kind of hassle. And I just love the guitar. I would never sell it. I don't think ever. But it's it's the one that all my other guitars, if I had to, I could get rid of them. But this one is one that, because you design it yourself. When every piece of it. And so people have often asked me what this guitar costs, because with all these crazy options and stuff, surely the guitar was like over $5,000. No, the guitar was $3,200 total, but actually less. It ended up being $3,000 even, because. So the funny story with this guy is this was a guitar that was, this was a guitar that was taken to the NAMM show, and they were using it as a show guitar. However, the neck was broken on the guitar. As a result, the guitar took almost 2.5 years to get to me. Now, the Jackson didn't tell me about the neck breaking until much later, because I was wondering. I had sent him and I was like, "Hey, what's going on? What's it taking so long?" Because they had said, we want to take this to the NAMM show. We won't sell it, but we want to have it on the show floor. So I was like, "Oh yeah, fine." And this is something they do all the time. I think with custom shop guitars that they're working on, they'll bring them to the show as showpiece guitars. Because not every guitar that's there is on sale. So, it's just there. The NAMM show is not really, it's not necessarily for selling so much as it is to showcase your brand, I think, more than anything else. And whether that's pedals or amps or whatever, it's, that's, I think, more the purpose than actually to sell stuff. And I'm sure there is a lot of stuff that's sold there, but, obviously not everything's for sale. So I don't think that's unique in that Jackson is the only brand that does this. I'm sure other guitar manufacturers bring, artist signature one-offs or stuff like that, as showpieces to show, what their shop is capable of. Because you have a lot of prospective buyers, prospective artists more than anything. I think one of the things about NAMM that's interesting is there's a lot of musicians that are there that are looking for a brand, not even necessarily a brand to be endorsed by, but just a brand, maybe to change over to and, potentially an endorsement down the road. So the other, that brings me to the final thing about this. What really has driven the value up on this guitar, I don't know how much it's worth now, but it's probably easy over $7,000, because if you try and have a custom shop guitar now, with a lot of these custom options, you're looking at around that price. But you can't get this guitar now. They will not make a guitar with Koa. They will not make a Death Angel body style anymore. It is their policy is if there is an exclusive artist signature body, that they don't do it. At least that's what they've told people from the forums. So there's a couple different models that are exclusive models to the artists. This one is obviously for Rob Castavani from Death Angel, and so I guess their policy is that that only Rob can get Death Angels now. I'm guessing is the thing, which I think that's kind of bullshit, but that's it is what it is. That's Fender's policy. And as a result, this guitar it will never be replicated again unless Rob decides to do the same setup, which I don't think is possible for him to do, because some of these things are things that unless you watch this video, you wouldn't know what they are. So yeah, I mean that's cool. I don't know. I kind of wish that they were still doing some of these shapes. There's some really cool ones out there that are exclusive artist signature shapes that you can't get as a custom shop. And some of the other options like using custom woods and things like that is not available either anymore, as Fender has resumed control or not resumed control, taking control of Jackson. So yeah, this one was built by Mike Shannon. Legendary guitar builder from Jackson, and obviously worked for Fender for a long time. Has, I think, close to 50 years of experience. This one was one where it would have been cool to have them. They were at one point doing these master build binders for the custom shops, and they were supposed to be sending them to everyone. No one ever got those damn things. Like maybe 5 people actually got the binders, and only after hounding them. But I would have loved to have had a binder for this one, just because it would have been really cool to see the process as it went along. There is, I don't know if it's still on their website or not. There's 2 pictures in the archives of this one, and it's one was the body blank after it had been cut. So no neck attached to it, just the body. But the top was on it. The pickups hadn't been installed, obviously. It was just the wood. And And then there was a picture of the guitar finished, hanging in like a showroom, and they obviously had some people that were there on a tour or something. It looked like, and one of the guys was, showing off. He's holding the guitar and showing it to people who were touring the facility. It looked like so. Those are the only two pics that I ever saw of it in its production stage, but it's pretty neat regardless. So that's this is the main axe, called the Green Machine. So that's that one. And then my second favorite, you've probably seen this one in some of the thumbnails, is this one. So this guy is again, a really great top. So this is an interesting story behind this one. I'm going to see if you could get a good picture of the wood. The back on this one is beautiful. So this is a Cherry Burst Strat with the body cut, the body contour. But a real Strat, not a Super Strat shape. This body came from a neck also. The whole guitar came from Warmoth, who does Fender replacement parts. They're the official Fender replacement part facility. But they also are a custom guitar manufacturer. But they manufacture pieces of the guitar. Like, you have to build a guitar yourself, essentially. They're not a builder. They're I don't even know what you would call them. They're unique, I think, in their business because they supply bodies, they supply necks, sometimes custom to order. This was custom to order neck, so yeah, I mean, you get some interesting stuff from that. But anyways, this body I bought from somebody on the Fender forums, or not on the forums, the Jackson Charvel forums, and he was selling this body, and I was really into the idea of putting together a guitar because it's not, if it's a bolt-on, there's really not that much guesswork to be done, and the hard part was the wiring part, and he had already done all that. So I was like, oh, I mean, I'll put the neck and everything else, and set the intonation and all that stuff, and so I was super happy about that. And he had this great guitar that it had, I think, I don't know what the pickups were. These were, I think DiMarzios or something originally. And he's got these cool little stack pots. So the top part is volume, the bottom part's tone. So they're really cool. So it's basically 2 knobs, but it's actually 4. So it's a really, really neat setup. This is a vintage trem. So standard hardtail Strat type of tremolo, and then your typical 5-blade switch with a single humbucker setup. This is like a Super Strat setup on a Strat. So the rear pickup and both of these are all custom wound pickups. There was a guy who I don't even remember how I got hooked up with him. I think he was on the Jackson Charvel forums. I talked to him and I was like, hey, I see that you make custom wound pickups. And he was like, yeah. So I was like, well, what type of pickups do you make? And he's like, I can make anything you want. Just let me know what kind of sound quality you're looking for. So I kind of gave him exactly what I was looking for, and he basically custom wound these pickups for me, and they cost about the same as what you would spend for some decent DiMarzios or Duncans, and shipped them to me. And at that point, I had gotten the neck for this guitar and the tuners. So I took the whole thing because I was like, it's probably better if I just take it to a pro and have a pro do everything rather than fuck around with it myself, because I was really happy with everything I'd gotten, and I was like, I don't want to fuck it up. So I took it to the guitar shop, and I was like, okay, I've got some tuners, I've got a neck, I've got a body, I've got pickups to install. can you put it? And he's like, yeah, sure, why not? So he charged me whatever. I mean, I think it was like $200 or something like that to get everything built. To get it put together. So he put these new pickups in. At the same time, since I had gotten this body, I needed a neck for it. So I was looking at Warmoth's website, and they had gotten in these Pal Ferro necks. And I was like, oh man, that's awesome. I love Pal Ferro. It's a really great, tone wood. But I'd never seen a neck made out of it before. A one-piece neck. Look at this. This is crazy. This is a one-piece neck. There's no scarf joint on this sucker. It is one piece, man. And I was like, okay, this is perfect. Let's do. I was like, well, let's do a Pal Ferro neck, and then I called in and because I wanted to get it as a custom order because you got to make sure it fits the neck joint and everything. So I gave him the measurements and everything for the neck joint to make sure it fit. And he was like, well, so what do you want to do about the fingerboard? And I'm like, well, what do you got that would pair up well with it? What would match up to a Pal Ferro neck? And he's like, have you ever heard of Kingswood? And I was like, what the fuck is that? And so he showed me some samples of this Kingswood. They had these blanks of Kingswood for fingerboards, and Kingswood is a close relative to Brazilian rosewood, but it's got just absolutely freaking insane figuring. And this actually you can see by looking at even on the camera picks it up. It's this really nice, reddish brown with like all kinds of crazy streaks inside of it, and it just is so great to play on. It's not too soft, but it really feels nice to play on. And when people talk a lot about how great Brazilian rosewood is as a fingerboard wood and how it's a shame where you can't get it anymore, I mean, it's for a reason. It was pretty damn close to being endangered. So they you almost can't get it anymore. There's some of these vault guitars that are made from PRS, and some other manufacturers have Brazilian rosewood because it's stuff they had in their private stock vault, but you can't import it anymore and stuff like that. And I think actually the same thing is true now of Koa. So he was like, all right, well, we'll do the Kingswood. And the one thing he did say is that they couldn't do any fingerboard shape or inlays other than dots. And I was like, that's fine. They did the abalone shells for this one too. The Powell shell inlays. It looks great, And then I got some more of the Schaller locking, or these are Spurzels actually. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, these are Spurzel locking. My Jackson has a Schaller, but these are I actually think the Spurzels might be even better because this sucker doesn't go out of tune unless you start really wailing on the whammy bar, and I got like a good nut on this one too. Like it's like a hybrid graphite nut. It's really but it's so it was really good. And the one thing the only thing I don't like about this one, as opposed to the Jackson I was able to specify the neck shape. I got a speed neck on the Jackson. This one is a traditional Fender neck shape, so it's a little bit it's a little wider, and I have very small hands, so it's a little bit easier for me to shred on the Jackson than on this one. So that is this guitar. So these are the two custom, so to speak, custom ones. Oh, and people were wondering, how much did this cost me, realistically speaking? Okay, so the body was $400. Okay, like I said, it was it was a good deal from it was somebody from the forums, right? So, he gave me a really good deal on it, and it was already pre-wired and everything. Now, the pickups, like I said, each one was probably about 150 for the pickups. So that's about 550 basically for all this. And then the neck was 300, and the Spurzels were about $90. So, about 400, so you're looking at around $1,200 for something like this, which for basically what amounts to a custom shop guitar is a really fucking good price. Really, really fucking good. So, that's this one. The next two are actual stock models, but have been modified slightly. So this one, which is next down on the list, is a Charvel. So this is a made in Japan Charvel archtop. This is called the model is the 750 XL. These go for around $700 or $800 on eBay. They're very sought after. They are set neck guitar. They're set through. Sorry, not set neck. Set through guitars. So if you look at the back here, you can see the scarf joint. It's kind of difficult to see in the light because you just see color variation, but this is the scarf joint basically where so with a set neck, set through neck. I'm sorry. What they do is basically there's a neck pocket that's created, and you can see it on the side here, that extends about this far into the guitar, and the neck is basically fitted through there. And it's glued in, so it's a little more stable than a regular set neck, which would be just glued in right here. Which I don't know how often you see a regular set neck. I think most guitars are set through or neck through or bolt on. So there's tons of argument out there about which is better, neck through or bolt on. It's the eternal argument, right? And my answer is basically it really depends on the quality of the guitar. It doesn't have anything to do with the design, right? Because if you get a well-built bolt-on like my Custom Shop Jackson, it will destroy a crappily built neck through in terms of resonance and stuff like that. That's the one thing people often say. Oh, that there's the bolt-ons don't resonate as well as a neck through, which is a load of junk. Because if your bolt-on is put on well and it's tight and it's secured well, it's going to resonate just as well as a neck through or set through. So, that being said, there's the big advantage to those is that they usually don't have as much of a heel, so it's easier to play. This is actually a little more heel than you would expect, but I think it's as typical of a set through design. A neck through might have more of a would have more of a piece out of here, so it would go down a little. It would extend down a little further before coming out. So this is a set through guitar with a 3/4 inch flame maple carved top. It's all red. It's trans red. This is obviously, when you look at this one, you can see clearly this is not the quality of top as some of the other ones. This is probably about a 3A, which is not bad. And I mean, it's a 3/4 inch, so it's a slab top. It's not like a veneer. The wood of the back is mahogany. The neck is maple. So, pretty standard configuration. Fingerboards rosewood. It's got mother of pearl shark fins and white binding, which I rather like. I like the white binding. It sets off the neck a lot, and the binding actually extends all the way up around the headstock, which you don't see that as often. Like, I don't think my I don't think my custom shop actually. Oh no, it does. It does have natural binding. They did the natural binding on the headstock on mine. I wasn't sure if they had or not. Which it's interesting though because the back is natural, so it gives you a little bit of an idea of what mine might have looked like if they had done the body correctly. But regardless, this one has stock Jackson tuners. For those who are unaware, Jackson and Charvel were the same company. At this time in the 80s, they were the same company. This is the toothpaste logo Charvel, so this is a later Charvel, not the small Charvel logo. There were some 750s that had that logo the previous year, had the, and those are worth a lot more. But those were not trans tops, they were solid color, I think black and purple. Ones. And then you can see this one doesn't get played as much because it's pretty dusty. But the pickups are Seymour Duncans. Those were changed, so those are not stock. That's the only thing on this guitar that's not stock. I put in the Duncans that were in the Warmoth that it came with. So this is what was originally in that guitar. So I believe it's a Screaming Demon, and I don't know what the other one was. Distortion, I think. A Distortion and a Screaming Demon. So that's what this one has. It's a great player, man. And these Japanese guitars that they were making are impeccable quality-wise. That's why this is, like I said, the value on these is really fairly high for a non-USA guitar, because these things have really great build quality. They were highly respected guitars. So that brings me to the final guitar. And this one is the other one that I probably would never get rid of unless I had to. And again, this is one where, it never gets played, but there's a special reason why I would want to keep this. So this one is a Jackson Kelly. Okay. Standard shape, right? Nothing crazy. But oh hey, what's that? What's that little switch in the middle there? What's this? What's that? So, as I think I mentioned, I was a big Dream Theater fan. Okay. So this was my first real guitar. I had a Ibanez piece of shit student model, whatever. It was like $100 guitar. It was crap. Paint job peeled off after like 3 months. Just garbage. And anyways, so I got this one, and the one thing, there's a couple things that I really don't like about this guitar. It's interesting because this guitar was, it's metallic blue, the body is alder, which is, your standard tone wood. They didn't cheap out on this or anything like, to any degree. Neck is maple, fingerboard's rosewood. Standard stuff, right? And I would say the thing that I don't like about this one is the Floyd Rose. I hate Floyd Roses. I don't really see a point in. I don't use the locking. I don't use the bridge enough to really justify the hassle of having a locking tremolo. It's a pain in the ass to change the strings. You got to block it off. You got to loosen the thing up, loosen the locking nut up here, and then you change the string. and then you got to remove the block. It's a pain in the ass, man. It's not. These are not. It's just not a very good system. But the main reason why it exists is because it doesn't go out of tune. Once you set the tuning, So what I've done with this guitar, primarily, and it's got a broken string now, and see, like I told you, it's a pain in the ass because obviously I haven't changed it. But this is my drop D guitar. So if I want to do something in drop D, I have this one set up with drop D, and it's good for that because I can just leave this as drop D. You don't want to change tunings on a Floyd Rose that often. You want to set it as something and leave it. So it serves a great purpose for situations like, say, you want to have a specific tuning. Maybe you want to just use this as a C sharp or something like that, right? You set it at C sharp and then you just leave it, And then my Jackson, the custom shop is almost always tuned to E flat. And then the Warmoth is E standard. So those are the three tunings I use the most: drop D, E standard, E flat. So, and I think those are your standard metal tunings. Obviously, there's a lot of other tunings that are being used nowadays. C is pretty common. B or D, not B. D is pretty common, which is a full step down, or D drop C, which is basically a step and a half, I think, a step and a half. So, or drop, which is essentially that's drop C, basically. But that's kind of what I would say with a guitar like this. Now, as for the little switch that I mentioned earlier, that was two things about this that are not stock. The first thing is that little switch, which is where the idea came from for the Jackson. This is a dual sound switch, which this whole concept came from John Petrucci's JPM guitar, the Ibanez signature model guitar he had. This was before he had a deal with Music Man. And the JPM had this really awesome, aside from a cool finish, which was like this Picasso finish, it had this switch up here in the corner that would go into phase, dual sound, or neutral. And then it was a 2 humbucker setup, so it would split the inner coils or split the outer coils. I used the exact same configuration of pickups he used, which was DiMarzio's. I really can't remember the names of the pickups, but it was the same DiMarzio's that he used on his signature guitar. So the idea was, I was a kid at the time. I was probably 18, 19. So I wanted to be John Petrucci, man. So I made this guitar as close as possible to the Dream Theater guitar. Of course, as we all know, those of us who've been playing guitar forever, having a guitar, you can have the exact same guitar. I could have Chuck Schuldner's guitar. That does not mean that I can play like Chuck Schuldner. So, or that it will sound remotely close to Chuck Schuldner's sound. So much goes into a guitar sound beyond the guitar, but most of it has to do with you. So that, of course, is me, 19-year-old me, not really realizing that. But it's great because I now have this guitar, and much like with the other Jackson, this is the one guitar that I would really want to try and hang on to because it was really my first real guitar. So that concludes the guitar section, and then we'll talk very briefly about amps. So I've got 2 amps right now. So hold on one second. So I have 2 amps right now, as I mentioned. One, I've got little stands here. I've got to close the thing on it. Okay. The first amp that I had, this was my first real amp. So I kept this one just because it was my first amplifier, and I've had other amps since then. But this one is a Behringer Blue Devil, which is like a Veritube simulation amp. So the idea behind this one is that I wouldn't need to get a bunch of pedals, because I bought this around the same time I bought the Jackson, right? And it served me pretty well. I used it for a lot of years, and obviously when you start getting into better amps, a separate cabinet, separate head unit, you realize that it's beyond just having a single solid state type of amplifier, right? And obviously, since this one's using a lot of simulation circuitry, it's all solid state. There's no tube in this one. My main amplifier is a Engel Fireball, which they're great amps. Let me see if I can find a picture of one so you guys can see what they look like. And I'll tell you the story of why the Engel Fireball was what I chose as an amplifier. Okay. So yeah, it's Engel Fireball 100. I got a really, really good deal on it. They usually go for around $3,000, between $2,000 and $3,000. Fantastic metal amp. Their distortion is impeccable. Tube amplifier, and this one again was somewhat inspired by who I was listening to at the time, which was at that time Blind Guardian. So at that point in time, I think both Marcus and Andre were using Engels, specifically the Fireball. But I'm not 100% sure. I think it certainly Andre, but I believe Marcus was as well. So I got one of those, and it's still with me to this day. I got a lot out of it. You can get them from starting at around $1,600, and then it depends on the wattage. So obviously I'm not in a studio, right? So I don't need some massive head unit. So I got the smallest one I could get, and got a really good price on it, and that's what I've been using. So those are really that's it for amps. I've had other ones. I had a little Mesa, not a Boogie, or a Mesa Boogie, but not a what's the famous one from Mesa? Not a triple rectifier or anything like that. It was just a basic Mesa Boogie. It was good. It was a nice little amp. It was like it was a low wattage combo amp, and it was good. It was good for blues rock. It was good for metal, and then I had another tube amp that was forget the name of it. It was good too. It was a solid. It was big. It was a big combo amp. And that was the reason why I got rid of that one. It was huge. It was twice the size of my Behringer. Width-wise. So it just took up too much space, and it weighed like 110 pounds. It was just ridiculous. So those were ones. The big one was a victim of downsizing. The same reason I used to have a Dean acoustic, the Key Largo, beautiful guitar. I mean, incredible inlay on that thing. It was like this really elaborate like dolphin inlay with like the Florida Keys and like palm trees and shit. It's gorgeous. It was a beautiful guitar. It was a great acoustic guitar, but I didn't play much acoustic, and I needed to downsize space wise a little bit. So the extra amps and the Dean were the victims. I also had a BC Rich NAMM Show Mockingbird archtop. That one I regret getting rid of. But again, it was all just about downsizing and bringing the collection down a little bit, because there was just no justification for me having all those guitars and all those amplifiers. It just wasn't. I was not going to be using it for a career. I didn't even play all that much at the time, anyways, and I still don't. So, there was just no reason to have all that stuff. So, yeah. That's pretty much it for my rig. I just want to talk about all that, and I will say it's important. One thing that gets overlooked a lot is important to use good quality cables. Try a bunch of, when you're starting out, try a bunch of different types of picks, and try and find the pick that works best for you. I use a fairly stiff pick, and I think you almost have to with metal, because with the speed at which you're playing, I can't imagine using a very thin flex pick, because you wouldn't be able to get articulation, I feel like. But there's different shapes and sizes of picks, from these giant, like, triangular picks like this to this one's my favorite. This was a Charvel pick from when Charvel both came back as a brand. This was from NAMM, and the guy who sent me the Warmoth guitar sent this to me, I believe. And it was a girl that they were backing at the time. Her name's Chelsea Constable. I know she's still putting out stuff, but she was a pretty awesome guitar player. But anyways, this is one of her picks. I love this one. This is the one that I use the most. The only complaint I have is a little small. But it's got some texture to it, so it's good for it. You get good grip off of it. So I like that one a lot. But I mean, I have some lighter picks. Most of the lighter picks I have, I used for the acoustic, when I had the acoustic. This one was one that was given to me by a friend. It's a Dunlop one. It's got like this texturing on the top, which it's another real thick one. So again, this one's really good too. The problem with this one's even smaller than the Charvel pick. So, I like the triangular picks. I like having more surface area, but I also like the thickness and design of these two thicker ones. So, haven't found that perfect pick yet. Still in search of, but. What I meant really with that was, what I was getting at was, make sure that you, try different things until you find what is 100% perfect for you. Because ultimately you can have the best gear in the world and it doesn't matter at all, because it's really all you, more than it is the actual instrument. I'm not downselling the importance of the instrument. There's no doubt. I mean, when you listen to my custom shop, it has a sound that is clearly, a large part of that is because of the tonality of the woods. But that is a minor thing compared to how you play. So anyways, that's it for this video. This went a lot longer than I thought it was going to go, but I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about this stuff, and maybe I'll do another video tonight for another song reaction or breakdown. So that's it. Have a good night, guys, and as always, stay metal.